Welcome to Arlandria Speaks Podcast, and I'm your host, Arlandria Speaks, aka Faith, author, soon to be personal development coach, and coffee addict. I'm determined to help you unlock all the parts of yourself that you're afraid of, change your perspective on yourself and life, and build a foundation of trust within. This podcast is all about dropping the veil, entering you into a new reality of spirituality, personal development, and relationships. Get ready to dive into the deeper parts of yourself as we embark on a journey to uncover the layers in reaching the highest version within. What is up, my beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode, and this week I have the magnificent, the wonderful, the beautiful mental health speaker and TikTok content creator, Maggie.
Wow.
I brought her on the show to really dive more into the mental health and personal development side of things in this episode, and I'm super excited to welcome her to the show. The first question I really wanted to ask you is, what originally inspired you to start making your TikToks, and what was like the background for you deciding to go through with that?
So for me, I could never journal. So it became like a video diary for me. And it was a way for me to release what I was feeling and talk about things because I'm big on talking out loud. I can't write things down all the time. And so I ended up getting this following just because I was sharing my story. I was depressed, I was anxious, and I was like, I wonder how many people can impact from this. So I started posting my little video diaries of what I needed to tell myself because I'm always speaking to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And once you started growing in your following, were you surprised at how many people that you impacted?
Yes, and it still surprises me. I sometimes don't even know how to react to it because I'm like, what? This was more for me, and then the fact that I got a following doing it was crazy.
I think that's beautiful though, that you ended up having to do it generally for yourself, and then you turned around and inspired massive amounts of people. That's amazing.
I know. Thank you. It is kind of cool when you think about it.
It's fucking dope. How do you think a person's mindset can affect their life?
Mindset is everything. It's perspective, it's everything. So if you have a pessimistic mindset and you see the negative in everything, that's all you're going to see in your life is the negative, the bad things happening. But if you turn around and start having a positive mindset and start seeing the beauty in things, life is going to become a lot more beautiful and a lot more positive. Mindset and perspective is everything.
Probably the thing that really turned around my life, honestly, is I know how difficult it is to constantly have a positive mindset. We're human at the end of the day, so obviously some days are not going to be the same, but generally keeping a positive mindset or trying not to let the small things get you down is super important, just to move forward in life and to actually want to wake up the next day, if you know what I mean.
I do. I think this generation honestly has this mindset that they're supposed to brush everything under the rug.
Yes.
And things aren't supposed to bother them. People in this generation feel like they have to be really tough and they have to, and so then they internalize everything and then it bursts out in other areas in their life.
Yeah, I struggle with internalizing just personally because of how I grew up. I wasn't allowed to have a voice, a lot of the times when I did open up or when I did share about my emotions and how I was feeling, I was always shut down. So my initial response is to immediately internalize everything that I'm feeling, but I'm learning to try to do something different and start to open up my feelings, even though it can feel very vulnerable doing so. But the only way to generally get those feelings out and move past them is to talk about them.
No, exactly. You'd be surprised how many people think therapy is so useless and how many people think talking about feelings is so useless. It's amazing to me. I'm like, if you would just talk about it, if you talk through things, you can figure so much shit out.
Yeah, I mean, because your mind, it really can become one of your biggest enemies, especially if you're in that negative mindset. You're going to start thinking about the things and making the problems bigger, to be honest. If you're just having a conversation with yourself in your head about it, the problems just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was the same way with therapy. And part of the issue, to me at least, is finding a really good therapist that cares about you and wants to see your growth is so important.
I agree. It took me, I've been through so many therapists. I think it has to like match your personality. And I think some people get it wrong that they go to therapy once, the therapist didn't work. Great, I'm good. I'm not going to look for another
Right.
therapist. I don't need it and this and that. Therapy's not for me. And it's like, oh, honey, we're all individuals.
I agree. I agree with you. So, what do you think are the most important steps towards healing and growth?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, so what I always tell people is self-awareness and acknowledging
Mm,
like the first step.
a
If
thousand percent.
if you're not acknowledging or self-aware of what's going on or where you went wrong or where the other person went wrong and you're not acknowledging your feelings or being self-aware of these thoughts and what's going on, you're not going to grow and you're not going to heal, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to literally self-awareness is the number one step. I don't even want to go further than that because so many people miss that step of being self-aware of their head and what's going on with their feelings and what the situation is, that they don't even grow, they don't even heal, they just, like I said, they brush it under the rug.
Yeah, you're 1,000% correct. And I mean, being self-aware is a huge fucking thing. It's not like something small. I always say be an observer of your mind. I mean, think about what thoughts that you're having, what is causing you to have a trigger in that moment, and all of those things because the more aware you are of what's going on in your head, the easier it is to solve and deal with those conflicts that you're having inside, you know?
And I also think, like, bouncing off of what you said, one thing that I like learned this year was kind of like looking at your brain through a curious standpoint rather than like
Mm,
a negative standpoint.
yes.
Because when you look at your brain through curiosity of like, oh, why am I reacting this way? Why am I thinking this? Why do
Yeah.
I have, and you're gentle with yourself, but you look at it curiously, it really helps you become self-aware, but not like hateful towards yourself.
Yes, because you cannot get nothing done in shame and guilt. Because if you're constantly shaming and guilting yourself, you're just gonna hate yourself, which makes you not solve any of the issues that you need
No,
to solve.
exactly. And then you're moving backwards instead of healing and growing and moving forward.
Exactly, exactly. So, what do you do on the days that you feel like you can't go anymore or that you want to give up?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually had to think about this a lot. Honestly, I kind of, it's simple, but I kind of count my blessings. So I keep a
Mm,
gratitude journal.
mm,
The days that I want to give up, I literally celebrate the littlest things. If I get up and brush my teeth, oh my gosh, hallelujah. Oh my goodness, it's a great day. I got up, I brushed my teeth, I celebrate that. If I get up out of bed, I celebrate that. If I got dressed, I celebrate that. Like, I celebrate the littlest things on the days I want to give up, and I'm not hard on myself. Meaning
mm.
that if I can't get everything done that day that I said I would get done, that's okay because the point is I made it through the day and I made it to the next day, and that's what I'm focused on. Not everything I have to do, not all this other shit that's going on. Just focus in on like, I would focus in on like, what can I do to make it to tomorrow? What is going good in my life? Like I said, that mindset, that perspective, that curiosity, it all plays a role in those days where you want to give up.
1,000%. I mean, you're talking to me right now because I struggle with that. I'm very hard on myself when it comes to getting things done and being productive. And if I sit and I just relax, I'm like, what are you doing? You're just sitting around doing nothing. And it's so hard to constantly, like, to be gentle with myself sometimes because I'm my biggest critic at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And
Well, I always said though, you know how you were talking about how you didn't feel like you had much of a voice growing up?
yeah.
I always say to like be the adult that you needed as a child
Mm.
because, and the reason I'm saying now is because in those days where I want to give up, I try and like look at myself through the perspective of like, what do I need? If I was a kid right now feeling this way, or if I was younger and I needed that support, what would I be doing with myself right now? How would I be gentle? What kind of adult would be treating this person right now? How would I be taking care of myself?
Yeah, that I feel like that would help so much. I don't know. You know the inner voice in your head where
I do.
you learn the shit that your parents like teach you and what they say to you and it literally sticks with you and resonates through you that becomes the voice in your head that's constantly being critical of you.
Right, and it's so weird because our parents grew up in such a different generation, and then we came, and all these things started changing in our society.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in a way, I want to say our parents did the best they could with what they had. And for me, that means that with the resources they had and the time period they grew up in, and then the time period where everything started changing with us, they probably were like, what the fuck do we do? Because think about the way they grew up. Think about the way that, all this other stuff was not normal for them. And then all of a sudden, this generation came out, the technology came out, the gays came out, the everything came out, and it's
Yeah.
like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and it's not to say like I'm giving our parents grace or giving people's family grace for like creating this bad inner voice, but in a sense, it's just hard because they're not as open-minded and understanding as this generation is, because
Yeah.
we have experienced so many differences, so many things going on in other humans that like we're very open-minded.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I use that to understand what my parents did. I use that as a way of for being able to forgive them. So honestly,
Yeah.
it brings me a lot of closure having an explanation behind like why they did what they did. I'm not saying it's okay, but
Yeah.
being able to understand where they're coming from makes it easier to swallow and easier to just put it down and let it go instead of holding on to it, and having that hate for it. And I
Yeah.
think our generation has definitely gotten to a point where we're becoming a lot more self-aware, a lot more empathetic towards other people, and actually understanding people and caring for them, because I think the generation before us, they really weren't allowed to talk about their feelings. They got beat for that shit. And
Mental health wasn't really a thing. They
Yeah.
didn't have the resources that we have now. They didn't have the same understanding, the same internet with all the information, the same everything. Like that was something, when they hear mental health back in their generation, they think crazy people.
exactly.
Some of them.
I was just about to say that.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh, we're crazy people.
We're fucking insane. But yeah, that's 100,000% true. Like that's exactly how I feel. And now that they're at this age where they're seeing their kids act this way, it's throwing them for a fucking loop. They're just like, what the fuck do we do? I don't know what to do.
I know all these kids, and it's just crazy. Like,
Yeah.
okay, don't get me wrong. I do look at kids younger than me in middle school, and I'm like, why are you doing drugs? What are they? Like, I get confused sometimes why people are growing up so fast.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand because we live in a world where we do have to grow up fast now.
Yes, literally. And honestly, that's like the saddest part. But I think definitely with the previous generation, also, like, because they're so stuck in that routine and that mindset of like, this is good, this is bad, and they've lived in that for 50, 60, 70 years, it's really hard to fucking unlearn that at that point. You know what I mean? And
I do.
And
I
I'm not
do.
saying
And
that
I
they
don't think
couldn't.
there's a point in. I mean, yeah, I don't think they couldn't. I think that some people can, but I think that the more conservative, not necessarily Christian, but the more like toned in families who are a little bit older, like my parents are a little bit older, it's a little bit harder for them to understand
Yeah.
like some of the things going on.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know?
Yeah. So, what is the best advice that you could give to someone that's struggling right now?
I always say that this too shall pass. I like truly believe in this quote because like there's probably so many times that people have wanted to give up, but the point is they survived 100% of their days. Do you know what I'm saying? They made it to today. They didn't just come this far to come this far. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I always say that shall pass. Like life is constantly changing. Things are constantly happening. The bad things that are happening are not going to stay bad for years and years and years. It's going to pass, but you all still have to do something to help it pass. Like you can't just stay stuck in this mindset because if you don't make a change, if you don't get up, if you don't become self-aware, nothing is going to change.
Yeah.
And nothing will pass. But if you're struggling and you try and like really reel that in and understand, like we said, from a curious mindset, you can understand that this too shall pass. It's like fucking clouds.
Yeah.
They pass. They go. They pass. It's the same thing with life events. They happen, but they don't stick with you forever. Some of them do, like deaths and like grief. They stick with you forever, but the terrible, like intense feelings, those do pass and become easier because you learn how to handle them and you learn how to like live with them.
Yeah, knowing that things are temporary definitely does help. I've learned that as I've gotten older because most of the time, BPD vibes. When you're in a moment of having something extreme happens or like a canon event, as TikTok says, the canon event. Everything feels like a canon event when you when you have mental health, not even just BPD, but depression or like bipolar disorder. It feels like a canon event the moment that you're in and you're just like, fuck everything, I'm done with this shit. And it's really hard to
Yep.
move past that feeling, but you really just have to like give yourself grace and understand even in this situation that feels like the world is ending, tomorrow is going to be different.
Right, and if you weren't strong enough for this life, then you wouldn't be living this life. If you weren't strong enough, if you weren't strong enough to do it, you wouldn't be here today because you made it this far.
Yes.
Like I said, you don't just come this far to come this far. It's not like the story just ends.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you made it this far for a reason. So there's a purpose.
Right. That's usually what gets me by, to be honest, is because I've attempted multiple times on my life and every single time it's failed and I'm like, God damn it. But at the end of the day, there's got to be a fucking purpose, you know? There's got to be a reason that it didn't work.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I've been there. I've been in the psych ward, all that. And I think the same thing. I'm like, if I wasn't supposed to be here at this point, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to close it out with this last question, and I know it's kind of like off topic to our mental health discussion, but I always ask everybody this on every episode because I think it's different for everybody, and I like hearing other people's answers. So, what does spirituality mean to you?
Oh my goodness. So, I believe in good people. I say this a lot. It's in my bio on all my social medias. I believe in good people. I believe in putting good into the world. I believe the universe will reward you. I believe in karma. I believe in all of that kind of stuff. I think the good you put into the world and the energy you put into the world will come back to you. That's my meaning of spirituality. And it's like seeing the good in other people too. It's trying to be a good person and like being with the universe and being with the world, looking at all these beautiful connections, looking at all the world is fucking beautiful, and I think people miss that a lot.
Yeah.
And so believing in good people, believing in the best in people, believing in people, that's my definition of spirituality, putting good into the world.
I think that's fucking beautiful.
Thank you.
To be honest, yeah, to go off of what you said, I feel like it's so difficult when you're constantly in go, go, go mode to even really sit back and sit still and just like look at what the fuck the world is, you know, and
Yeah.
be able to like notice the beautiful things that we have here because it's so difficult when your mind's constantly going about what's the next step to actually sit and realize like how beautiful life can be.
It is, because a lot of us live in our heads. Sometimes we need to get out of our head and look at the world around us.
Right. So where can people find you?
People see me on TikTok at MaggieTBH or on Instagram, and it's _Matt.
Awesome. And if you guys are interested in checking out her TikTok page, which I really recommend that you do, I'll put it in the show notes so that you guys can check it out and then also follow her on Instagram. Thank you so much for coming on the show with me. I'm so happy that you decided to do this. I know people love absolutely hearing your voice, and I cherish it as well because you have amazing things to say.
Thank you. That's so nice. And you're amazing too, Faith. Oh my goodness.
Thank you so much for tuning into our Arlandria Speaks podcast. I hope this episode has helped expand your mind on a deeper level. If you're loving this podcast, please make sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode, and please leave a review for this podcast to help me reach more people looking for inner expansion just like you. See you guys next week.